We might make a start. So welcome everyone this morning to our first ever DMA Engineers webinar, which is on the topic of building healthy places. I'm Russell Lamb, Managing Director of DMA, and I'll be hosting the webinar where we're fortunate to have as our guest Rachel MacCleery. Rachel is joining us from Washington, DC today. That's where she's based. I'm actually in California today, but where Rachel is the Senior Vice President of Content at the Urban Land Institute, where she leads the Building Healthy Places initiative amongst a few other programs. Under the Building Healthy Places, Rachel is spearheading ULI's efforts to shape projects and places in ways that improve the health of people and communities. The recent projects that she's worked on are focused on reimagining urban corridors, emphasising health in housing projects, promoting active transportation investments, and other intersections between health and wellness and development practice. So today we're really looking forward to Rachel sharing some insights with us into these experiences, as well as her sharing some practical tools and tips for how we might take on some of these ideas and learnings and implement them on our own projects here in Australia. So Rachel, thanks very much for joining us today. So I might just a couple of quick questions before we get in. I understand that you're in California today, so how's the weather over there for you?
It is, it's very pleasant now. It's rainy and cold for the past few days, but it's cleared up.
Oh, that's nice to know that, yeah, it's quite nice for you today. Yeah, here in Oz, we're in Brisbane. It's a sort of a sultry, humid, showery day, but we're doing a lot better than people in one of our other major areas in towns where they're actually experiencing severe flooding. So we've really got not too much to complain about at the moment. So pretty good there. So Rachel, how long have you been involved in the Building Healthy Places initiative?
ULI launched Building Healthy Places about 6 years ago, and I have been involved in helping to lead the work from the get-go. So I joined ULI about 10 years ago, but for the first part of my tenure there, I was mostly focused on infrastructure issues, which of course overlap with Building Healthy Places topics, but the Building Healthy Places initiative is a bit new.
Yeah, I suppose six years is quite considerable, so you'd be starting to yeah, sort of well and truly understand what it means and where you've got to go. So what are some of the major changes or developments that you've seen over that time of 6 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll talk about some of them during the slideshow. I think one major thing that has happened is that new health certification systems for buildings have come online since we started the initiative. When we first were getting started, they were sort of in the planning stages or in the infancy, and now WELL and FitWell are both global certification systems that are really up and running. So that is very exciting. And then I would say that there has just been a really growing understanding and appreciation for the role of health and the importance of thinking about health when it comes to real estate investment and community planning. So I think that awareness has definitely been growing over the past few years.
That's very good. It's really good to understand that and starting to get some really good traction, which is great. So before we actually hand over to Rachel for her presentation, I'd just like to bring up to speed on a couple of things. We'll have some question and answering time throughout Rachel's presentation. So you'll know that there's a Q&A function on your screen to post your question. So if you could sort of, as a question comes up, put those through to me, and then I'll filter those and put those through to Rachel at the appropriate time. We're also recording the webinar, so if you have to leave early for any reason, or you'd just like a copy of the webinar for later reference, we'll send out a link to the recording so you can watch it later on. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Rachel.
Okay, thanks Russell, and thanks to DMA for having me today. I'm Rachel MacCleery. I work at the Urban Land Institute, and I'm delighted to be here with you speaking about connections between health and design and architecture. Thanks for spending your morning with me. It's pretty amazing how internet technology can bring people from a world away together for just a moment. So first I want to give you just a high-level overview of the Urban Land Institute where I work. ULI is an 80-year-old nonprofit dedicated to promoting best practices in real estate development. So we use convenings and research and case studies and best practices and other strategies to help our 42,000 or so members who are all real estate industry professionals like you. So developers, designers, financial people, public sector folks, to achieve our mission. Our mission is to help create and sustain thriving communities worldwide. I think the ULI mission is really a powerful reminder of the responsibility that we all have as shapers of the built environment to create places that are good for people and foster cities and neighborhoods that can help people live the best life possible. If you're not a ULI member, I encourage you to join. Membership comes with a host of benefits, including access to cutting-edge content, networking opportunities, access to our member directory, and more. ULI Australia has an active national council with lots of great events and programs, which I encourage you to check out at asia.uli.org. So at ULI, I manage the Building Healthy Places initiative. We launched the initiative about 6 years ago out of a recognition that many American global health trends are pointing in the wrong direction. And these include spending on healthcare and on raising rates of chronic disease. So we felt the need for the real estate community to do more to be part of the solution to health challenges. We know that a healthy place is a thriving place and that health is interconnected with sustainability, with social equity, and with other things that matter greatly to us. So we're focused on leveraging the power of ULI's global networks to shape projects and places in ways that improve the health of people and communities. We've produced a number of publications over the past several years, which are all available as free downloads at uli.org/health. You might think that health is what happens at the doctor's office, but it's really not. Medical care accounts for about 10% of an individual's health outcomes, and the rest is determined by personal behaviors, family history and genetics, and environmental and social factors. So lots of research is telling us that places where we live, work, and play shape our actions in powerful ways, in ways that we don't always think about. It's clear that our built environment drives a lot of the health outcomes that we're seeing. So today, in contrast to the past, where contagious disease is a great public health challenge and scourge, health spending and trends are being driven by chronic disease, and chronic disease is linked to the built environment. In the pursuit of comfort and convenience and open spaces, out of our worship of the almighty vehicle, which is something that I think Australia and the United States have in common, we've managed to design physical activity out of everyday life. Rather than make the healthy choice, the easy choice, we make it the hard one. So what can we do better? How can we help places transition from treating disease to keeping people well? Any strategy needs to start with, or at least include, the built environment. And these are the places that all of you shape. Developers and designers shape health, whether you know it or not. And you shape it at a variety of scales. So buildings, which you build, design, and finance, are essential. They're the basic building blocks of communities. Humans spend up to 90% of their time indoors, awake or asleep, at leisure or at work. Buildings are nestled in neighborhoods, which can make healthy behaviors like walking or biking, buying fresh food, interacting with neighbors more or less easy. Neighborhoods are the building blocks of cities. Cities determine economic opportunities, educational outcomes, housing quality, affordability, transportation forms and convenience, and access to healthcare. Cities are clustered in regions, which are located in countries which are part of the world. So national policies or federal policies are clearly important for determining health, transportation, and housing outcomes. And global policies, such as regulating climate change emissions, shape risks and opportunities. So each of these scales act upon us as individual human beings and parts of community and help determine how healthy we are and the opportunities that we have to be healthy. And the shape of our built environment is not conducive to health right now. Current trends and data are troubling. 60% of Australian adults get less than the recommended 30 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity per day. That's consistent with the United States. 4% of Australians cannot access sufficient, safe, and nutritious food. That's actually much lower than the US. For the first time in US history, and this is probably true in Australia, today's generation of children may have a shorter lifespan than their parents. In the US, an ever-growing share of GDP is going to healthcare. It'll be up to 19% in 2020. And in Australia, that figure is 10%. It's also growing in Australia, though not quite as quickly as it is here in the United States. Physical inactivity and social isolation are comparable to smoking as leading causes of preventable death in the world. 1 in 4 Americans report being lonely. That's all a lot of bad news. But the good news is that we can turn it around. And we've done it before. There's precedent for this. The country and the world actually has a history of using public health interventions to improve health. There's precedent in the use of the built environment to improve health outcomes. In the past, as I've mentioned, these efforts have focused on infectious or communicable disease. So at the turn of the last century, the progressive era ushered in a string of civic rules and investments. So building codes were strengthened to require access to sunlight and fresh air. Cities built wastewater treatment facilities to remove pathways for disease, transit to allow people to escape urban crowding, grand parks to provide opportunities for leisure and recreation and fresh air. Zoning regulations were established to separate noxious industry from where people live. And these changes, along with public health interventions such as vaccinations, ushered in dramatic increases in well-being and health, and this can be seen most clearly in life expectancy. So life expectancy trends really reflect these investments. In Australia, life expectancy at birth rose dramatically from about 50 years for men and women to close to 80 in 2009 over the course of about 150 years. So this is a tremendous improvement, a major accomplishment for the country, and reflects investments in infrastructure, housing, public health, especially containing childhood infectious diseases and making childbirth safe for women and babies. But over time, over the past few generations and decades, the fields of planning and design and real estate and public health diverged, but we can bring them back together again. Like reformers at the turn of the century, we can turn it around. We can make a focus on health the next big movement in real estate, community building, and housing. With your help and the help of shapers of the built environment everywhere, health can join sustainability and sort of considerations of green as a core focus for those who care about and shape the built environment. So this will require a paradigm shift and a shift in focus for building trades like architecture, urban planning, real estate design, engineering. The real estate industry has long been focused, and rightly so, on ensuring that our projects are safe and that people who live and work in our buildings are protected from risks and hazards like fire and other threats to life and safety. And this is essential. But we also need to strive towards making proactive investments to promote health and wellness, to promote overall human well-being, and to understand the needs of the human being in the space. So in addition to helping to solve health challenges, a focus on health is good for business. You can be confident that the market is going in this direction and that there'll be more and more demand for healthier places and design. A report by McGraw-Hill found that about half of US building owners will pay more for a building that has a positive impact on health. Businesses are aware of the trend. The youngest generation of the workforce is prioritizing workplace quality over other benefits. 78% of millennials see workplace quality is important, and 69% will trade other benefits for better workplaces. So focus on health and wellness really offers tremendous bang for the buck. Salary and benefits are the largest portion of employer expenses. They dwarf outlays on energy and water and other operations. So small reductions in employee turnover, reductions in sick days, increases in productivity can provide significant returns to employers' bottom lines. So what does this all add up to? How do we solve health problems, meet the market demand for health, and make the built environment better for health? I will talk about that next, but let me just pause now for any questions that Russell may have gotten in the chat box from folks in the audience.
So Rachel, we haven't had any questions actually come through, but I'll probably just, maybe just sort of a comment more than a question, but in quite a lot of the health conferences I've attended recently, there's been a large talk and focus on getting healthcare out into the community, and workplaces, and that obviously form an important part of that. But obviously I'm assuming America's the same, but in Australia a lot of our hospitals are somewhat getting clogged and not meeting their original purpose, which was for acute care rather than care and health that can be improved in the community. So obviously the improvements we can make in our workplace and the built environment make such a big difference in just the health of our communities and the functions of our hospitals. And then, if you go further from that, from I suppose, designers in the industry, obviously, better buildings that we can put together and allow to operate mean, happier and healthier employees, and that very quickly you can put that to an economic benefit beyond the social benefit as well. So there's certainly a lot of good linkage there as to beyond the right social reasons for doing it. There's really good economic foundation there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a very strong business case to be made for thinking about health and wellness from the start of projects. And what we'll see in the toolkit recommendations I talk about, a lot of them are sort of small tweaks on business as usual. They don't have huge cost implications, especially if they're considered upfront.
Yeah, that's right. And as you say, the cost impacts mightn't be that substantial in any case. So it's about putting these things into perspective.
Absolutely. So, so I'll just jump into the recommendations from the toolkit. So ULI released the Building Healthy Places Toolkit in 2015. And we did it because, we kept talking about there's these connections between health and real estate, and the real estate industry should really be thinking about these things. And, there's these returns. And our members just kept saying, okay, we get it. We believe it, but tell us what to do. Give us the specifics about what you're asking for us to do, and tell us what the evidence backs up. And so the toolkit is how we told them. It has 21 core recommendations for promoting health in 3 real estate projects and campuses in 3 categories. So physical activity, healthy food and drinking water, and healthy environment and social well-being. So all of the recommendations, all the 21 key recommendations in the report have clear health evidence behind them. That is, if you do these things, the data shows that it will improve health at a population level and healthy behaviors and choices. So we developed the recommendations with the development and design community in mind. We wanted to provide clear, actionable items for developers and designers. A lot of what's in the toolkit makes sense as amenities from a market perspective. They respond to what people are looking for, and they don't cost a lot. They're low or no cost modifications to business as usual, especially when these approaches are incorporated into projects in the early parts of the development process rather than being tacked on at the end. So let's jump in here, and I'll just say, I welcome any comments or questions that you may have as we go along here. Releasing the toolkit, we've developed some additional reports zeroing in on particular topics. So biking and food and the business case. I'll share a little bit of information from these reports as well. All of these, along with the toolkit, are available as free downloads at uli.org/health. So turning to the toolkit now, let's start with how the real estate industry can promote physical activity. Moderate, everyday physical activity is an essential component of a healthy lifestyle, and it really it needs to be baked into people's everyday experiences and interactions with their environment and their communities. Research show that land use mix is one of the most important drivers of how much people walk and bike. People need to have destinations to walk to. So first, to the extent possible, don't be an island. Choose locations in walkable, mixed-use places. Integrate your facilities with existing land use patterns. Design or connect to well-connected street networks at the human scale. Prioritize the pedestrian when designing the street network, favoring shorter blocks with multiple intersections, and establishing pedestrian paths. limit parking to the extent possible, and make parking lots safer for all users. If you're building a new facility, highlight the stairs. Once upon a time, buildings were designed with beautiful grand staircases that people use daily, but nowadays, stairs are often relegated into dark corners with dim fluorescent lighting, bleak materials. They're actually called egress stairs, so they're designed only for exit in extreme situations. But numerous stair use provides, or regular stair use provides numerous benefits, including reduced stroke risk, improved cardio health, and weight management. Just 6 flights of stairs a day can offset the average annual weight gain of adults, translating into healthcare expense reduction. So design visible, enticing stairs to encourage everyday use. Make stairs open, obstructed, and unhidden. In places where lots of people are in wheelchairs, you can use open spiral ramps. Of course, in most buildings, you'll still have to provide elevators, and that's fine. Just make sure that stairs are at least as prominent as elevators. If you can't build nice new stairs, you can add signage and make existing stairs nicer. A 2004 study saw a 9% increase in foot traffic when researchers added motivational signs, artwork, carpeting, new paint, and music for the stairwell. Provide keys or access cards so building users have secure access and can get in and out. Where feasible, make sure that adults and children have places to play outside. Provide equipment for all ages, thinking beyond classic swings and slides. Ensure that parks are well lit and that they have shade. Provide drinking fountains and, where possible, restrooms. Facilitate access by walkers, bikers, and transit riders, and those with mobility challenges. So not everyone should need to use a car to access your facility. Active transportation modes need infrastructure too, so well-lit pathways, safe crosswalks, trails, bicycle connections, secure places to store bikes. You can include sidewalks and pedestrian paths, making sure that streets are lit. Provide bikeways and trails, indoor bike parking. I know Australia has a lot of bike share programs, but if there's not a nearby bike share programs, we've seen individual companies start ones of their own. So our active transportation and real estate report, which we released about 2 years ago, really goes a little bit deeper in how the private real estate industry can support municipal investments in bike paths and trails and other civic bike infrastructure. So we're seeing private buildings doing things like adding dedicated bike storage areas, having extra wide hallways or bike elevators to facilitate the movement of bikes within buildings, bicycle workrooms and repair stations, washing stations. Some buildings even have valet services for bikes, so you can bike up to the entrance of a building and let somebody else park your bike for you. So lots of innovations going on, and I think the important point here is that it'll take the public and the private sector working together to create that really seamless bicycle infrastructure that you see in places like Denmark and the Netherlands, that where biking is ubiquitous and convenient and just happens everywhere. So a project that we looked at in the United States is a project called Circa, which takes its name from biking. It was designed to be in proximity to the Indianapolis Cultural Trail, which is this big trail, a multi-million-dollar 8-mile urban trail that connects a lot of the downtown cultural amenities in Indianapolis. So Circa is a multifamily project with 265 units. It's got a bike share service, a bike workroom, and a maker's room. It's got vertical bicycle storage for 150 bikes, a bike washing station. And so it's really leveraging that interest in biking and its proximity to the cultural trail to help it position itself in a competitive marketplace. So turning now to the next category in the toolkit, healthy food is essential. Access to healthy food is critical for health. So developments can use flexible spaces such as plazas or parking lots for regular farmers markets. Farmers markets make healthy food more visible for employees and patients. And if pay as you can kinds of policies are adopted, they can be affordable too. Farmers markets really just aren't about food. They're about community building and connecting with other people and with neighbors. They help people reflect on where their food comes from and what it takes to grow and transport it. We're seeing lots of interest in on-site gardening and farming. So developers can support that through providing space for community gardens, for a small farm, by doing edible landscaping, where instead of planting ornamental plants, you're planting edible plants and herbs, berries, fruit trees. We can have opportunities to get locally grown food to residents and partnering with the community organizations. If you want to go the extra mile, you can kick it up a notch with beekeeping or chickens, cooking classes and workshops to teach people how to make healthy food. In the United States, this food culture is really booming, and it's gotten a lot of interest from multifamily developers as well as office folks. And again, these kinds of community strategies are as much about food as they are about community engagement, social interaction, addressing that social isolation and loneliness that I talked about earlier. So they really do have a host of health benefits. An example of a farm-centric or a community garden-centric development is Harvest. It's a $1 billion, 1,200-acre master planned project in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas. I think it probably has a climate that's similar to some parts of Texas or Australia, so it's very hot and dry. It was developed by Hillwood Communities, and it features a professionally managed farm, 2 community crop areas with food used for special gatherings. There's raised garden beds that residents can rent. Harvest sells the food grown on the farm to 30 restaurants in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and homes are selling for $300,000 to over $550,000 US dollars. This is an example of the kind of messaging that Harvest is using. So really looking at how the community garden is driving community, bringing people together. And they also, in their website, showcase more traditional amenities like fitness centers and pools and play spaces. But the farm part of it is central to the sort of ethos of the community. And we've been taking a deeper dive into this opportunity around agrihoods. We have a new report, which we released just a couple of months ago, called Agrihoods Cultivating Best Practices. So it looks at 8 different practice areas and suggestions for how to build a master plan community about a farm. So if you're interested in this opportunity, definitely check out that report. So I'm going to turn now to the third and final category in the toolkit, which is around healthy environment and social well-being. A key recommendation is to increase access to and views of nature. So nature has amazing restorative powers for both mental and physical health. So key things to do are to preserve and restore natural areas. So one strategy for that is if you're doing a master plan community, to cluster the development and preserve the natural spaces. Plant trees, provide views of nature even in apartment buildings, even in dense urban places. Provide seating within parks and green spaces. And if anybody's interested, biophilic design is an emerging practice area that takes these principles to the next level. It looks at how do you incorporate plants and green spaces into indoor environments and offices. Some of you may be aware of the study that showed that patients in hospitals who had views of trees recovered from surgery and other medical procedures faster. Even workers in a call center, usually known as, or sort of thought of as a sensory deprivation chamber, saw increased productivity as a result of views of nature. So fundamentally, people are animals, and nature is necessary for the human heart and the human soul, as well as the body. People are also fundamentally social animals. So I mentioned before the loneliness epidemic facing people across the United States and the world. So developers really need to understand the role they play in creating gathering places for residents and employees, places like plazas and parks and other open spaces. Communities need these spaces, which can be used and programmed with classes and events and activities. Be sure to design the space and the programming for maximum accessibility to accommodate all ages and abilities. Programming in this space is often very important, so encouraging interaction with a regular calendar of programming and activities. So thinking now about that healthy environment, especially healthy indoor environments, if you're building a new project, be sure to choose materials and products that support healthy indoor air quality. You can select materials that do not emit toxins or VOCs, eliminating features such as carpeting that are known to trigger allergies, and doing other things to improve the indoor air quality of buildings. This is relatively new research, but research out of Harvard and affiliated with the WELL building standard are showing that well-ventilated, low VOC spaces help improve cognitive functioning scores in pretty dramatic ways. Maximizing sunlight and daylighting within buildings by window siding, automated lighting cutoffs, and sophisticated lighting control systems. And definitely think about noise. Design buildings and spaces to minimize exposure to noise. So noise distractions, especially those that affect sleep, are a key health risk. So I'm going to pause for a second. Did a question come in?
Yeah, so Rachel, we do have a question, and it's come from Nick Denisic, is one of our engineers. And
okay.
Nick says that he agrees with the proposal for stairs and play areas and that sort of stuff, which makes really good, obvious sense. But his question is, how do you sort of meet the right trade-off between that and developers, I suppose, commercial return on the square meterage that they give up to provide that stairwell, which is a big focus in Australia, whether you're talking about stairwells or whether you're talking about lost leasable floor area. So have you got any ideas and I suppose experience in how to manage that aspect?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about that in a little while. But I think really thinking about the long-term value proposition of the building and making the case that these investments will stand the test of time. They'll be more and more desired by tenants and other employers who might occupy that space. So in some ways, building these things in to the design of the space is a way of sort of future-proofing projects and meeting the market. So, I mean, to the extent that the argument can be made about, I think, the evidence is pretty clear that green space enhances the long-term value of projects, despite the fact that you're giving up a little bit of the developable space, but it provides lots and lots of dividends. These are amenities that people are going to be looking for and prioritizing. So as designers, really thinking ahead about where the market is going and how to meet that. And then, for some folks, potentially the health benefits may or may not be persuasive, but I think the evidence is very clear. And so, thinking about the sort of knock-on effects of all of these small decisions that are made in the built environment, really thinking about how can you talk about health and wellness in a way that's going to be persuasive to the clients and other folks that are decision makers in this space.
And I suppose to touch on what you said there a little bit before about the ethos of a development, but really it's got to be a philosophical choice of the development, right from the outset, to develop a project in a certain way and to tie that in with the marketing and I suppose the business case with that to actually make sure it flies at the end of it. And it's obviously something that just can't be tacked on, part way or at the end of a process. It really needs to be, front of mind from the outset.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it would be interesting to look at, stairs and elevators and see how much space, you're actually giving up. But I think there's ways to, include stairs and those kinds of things in pretty space efficient ways.
Yep. Okay. All right. I don't think we have any other questions at the moment, so we might get back to the main of your presentation if we could.
Okay, that's great. So welcome questions from other folks as well. So I know that there are some hospital representatives in the audience, and so I just wanted to highlight one really exemplary hospital project, also coincidentally in Indianapolis. So the hospital was undertaking a really massive redevelopment program, which was designed to improve public health outcomes. The investments that they prioritized were identified through a very extensive community engagement process, which explored the local health challenges and priorities of the community. So the new hospital has done all sorts of things to promote health and prevent illness among the community through prevention, programs and amenities that promote healthy eating and nutrition, and that work in conjunction with other community programs to promote physical activity among hospital staff and community members. The new campus has new publicly accessible open spaces and previously underutilized areas of the site. There's a 5,000 square foot roof garden called the Sky Farm, which you can see there in the picture, which was built as part of the new hospital and is open to patients and employees. So people are able to go there to pick fruits and to plant, to look at the vegetables and the flowers, or just use this space to take a break and relax. The harvest is made available to patients and visitors and staff. There's an extensive, it's called the Expectancy Healthy Me Wellness Program that provides free healthy lifestyle support to all patients. So, Russell had mentioned earlier the role of the hospital and sort of healthcare facilities and driving that sort of wellness message and providing those wellness services. And this is an example of a hospital that really took that mandate very seriously. This is a view on the right-hand side of the interior corridor at the plaza, and then on the left of the exterior plaza. So a grove of trees was planted in the plaza that fronts the hospital. It's got green space and water gardens, a snack bar that serves healthy food. So here the hospital is really positioning itself as like a community gathering space. The spaces connect the hospital to the existing downtown neighborhood. They provide spaces for serenity and wellness for patients. There's yoga demonstrations, a farmer's market, and other cultural events that take place within these spaces. So this really illustrates how medical facilities can go above and beyond treating disease to instead focusing on how to promote holistic health and wellness. So in addition to the design and programming interventions that I reviewed, there are lots of opportunities to take it to the next level when it comes to health and wellness. So there's several ways to do this. If you're a designer or an architect, encourage your clients to form new partnerships with non-traditional partners, with schools and with hospitals. Forge a deeper understanding of community health needs and base your design on these needs. What are they missing? What are they prioritizing? Work to measure health outcomes in partnership with other professionals to grow the body of evidence. Use language that reinforces health, wellness, and well-being when marketing projects. Consider health at every stage of development. It's most cost-effective to consider it upfront, but you consider it from the outset of the project throughout each key decision-making step. And as civic leaders and people who are active in the community, support and push for city initiatives that promote health. So investments in bike lanes and sidewalks and other public infrastructure investments. This is really an exciting time for health and design. There's lots of innovation going on in the field right now. I mentioned Well and Fit Well at the start of the webinar. These are new health certification systems that are operating at a variety of scales and a variety of different real estate products. So Fitwell was developed by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and the General Services Administration. It measures a building's health performance against 7 categories of evidence-supported health metrics. And WELL is a performance-based health certification developed as a complement to LEED. So both certification systems provide a transparent and accessible way to understand and take action on human health and well-being. So this is, there's 2 Fitwell certified buildings in Australia. This is the Brisbane office for the financial services firm AMP. AMP actually has both of the Fitwell certified buildings in Australia. But both WELL and Fitwell are growing exponentially in terms of registrations and certifications and people expressing interest. So I think we'll see more and more of the healthy building certifications coming online. And another exciting development is the inclusion of health into the environmental, social, and governance, or ESG, performance criteria collected by GRES. So this data is helping health and wellness to increasingly become an investable attribute. In 2016, GRES introduced a pilot health and well-being assessment module, which is assessing how property companies and funds are promoting health and well-being in their internal operations. So this is, and I'm sure folks are probably familiar with GRES, but this is a benchmarking service that provides information for investors like REITs and other people that are considering investments in various real estate assets. And so this will really help to drive the prioritization of health and wellness throughout the real estate industry. I think that the health and well-being module is still optional, but it may be becoming mandatory in the next couple of years. So when you add it all up, it's clear that if you invest in health, you'll have the opportunity to differentiate yourself in a competitive market. Developments can avoid future obsolescence and provide a signal to the marketplace that the project is well managed. So focus on health is sort of a way of signaling that the project is good or excellent. Tenants may be willing to pay more for rent in a healthy building. As we've seen, personnel costs are the largest single cost for employers, and wonderful, healthy buildings can help companies attract the top talent they're looking for. So, for example, CBRE found that twice as many top candidates accepted their job offers at well-certified buildings than in their non-certified offices. So we've seen that that's quite a priority. If you're going to be spending 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day in a space, you want it to feel good and be good for you. And finally, lower capital costs and more access to capital. So new debt products, new rating systems, new reporting modules may incentivize healthy homes and buildings, and institutional investors like REITs or big pension funds that have those stringent ESG requirements may start showing preference or a requirement for healthy offices and other assets. So at scale, the strategies in the toolkit are common sense, cost-effective ways of improving population health. In general, they don't cost a lot of money, especially if they're incorporated into the design process at the outset. And the marketplace is definitely looking for better, healthier places. People want to live, work, and play in places that are good for their health. So I hope I've sparked or confirmed your interest in health and real estate and the desire to learn more. We've got a lot of reports on health and wellness in real estate. Please check them out. They're all available for free along with the toolkit on the website at uli.org/health. I hope that you'll continue to put health first or advocate for health and wellness. I hope you'll check out the resources, and please connect with me and with the program by emailing health@uli.org. Thanks for letting me share my thoughts, and I'm happy for a discussion. I see there's a couple of questions that have come in. If you'd like to hear more, I'm always open for an invitation to Australia.
Yeah, so thanks, Rachel. Yeah, I was really interested. You talked on share bikes and that sort of stuff. And just a bit of a funny point is in Brisbane, we've had shared bicycles now for a couple of years, and they've gone pretty well. We've now got share Lime scooters, and they're very, very popular for younger people and that sort of stuff. But being an engineer, we're starting to hear talks about possible accidents. I saw a young guy locally the other day that had his leg in plaster, I should say, where he'd had a spill off his Lime scooter. So ultimately, it'd be interesting to see at the end of the day when you measure the holistic health benefits with programs like that as to whether we're actually in front or slightly behind. But the Lime scooters for the younger generation are certainly popular.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so there's been a lot of alarmism here in the United States, and I'm sure it's the same in Australia, about how dangerous the e-scooters are and the scooters. And, I think that applies to really any mode besides an automobile. And really the onus shouldn't be on, unfortunately it is on people to wear that protective gear and, suit up with the helmets and everything. I think it's really, it's incumbent upon cities and on people who are shaping the built environment to think about how do you make it safer for people of all modes to be on streets. And, there's a car that's involved in that scooter accident as well. And, they're probably taking up more than their fair share of the space, and the road is designed for them. And so, I think we should flip the narrative and really think about, what can we be doing to change the design and the operations of those streets to make them safer for people that are not in automobiles.
Yeah, I'm not sure. In Aussie, our Lime scooters principally are on footpaths and that sort of stuff. I'm not sure whether your scooters are on the road, but I mean, I take your point. The thing is, if we take too much of a risk-averse approach with these sorts of things, and we put too many roadblocks up, and it's just not easy to do, people aren't going to use it. The benefit with a Lime scooter is there's one just about in every corner. You can jump on it in 5 seconds. You can be away, and you can get yourself there. If we put obstacles in place, we'll never get large uptake and that sort of stuff. Yeah. So we have a question there from Mark Lyle of Grey Puxton. So Mark said he'd be interested to learn whether there'd be any resources or comments on the direction of aged care design as it relates to this topic about health and wellbeing. And I'd sort of concur with Mark. There's a lot of consideration and discussion about retirement living, aged care, trying to bring community into aged care and not have aged care particularly sort of ostracised. So any resources and current thinking in aged care design would be really beneficial to us here in Oz.
Yeah. So a publication my program hasn't done any particular examination of like senior housing or this sort of supportive housing facilities, but we did just release a report called Healthy Housing for All, which you can see here on the slide. And that report looks at lessons from affordable housing and affordable housing design and operations for the broader housing marketplace. And so it's got design features and operational approaches, looking at things like universal design and accommodation for people of all abilities. And so there's a schematic in there that's quite good that lays out 12.5 strategies for promoting health and affordable housing. Affordable housing in the United States, is targeted at low-income people, and those are folks with some of the most chronic health issues. And so it really makes sense that affordable housing developers are focusing on that population. Many of them are elderly. And so I would take a look at those. I think that a lot of the strategies that are applicable to affordable housing would also be applicable to senior housing kind of context. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. If I could just one more question, or just get your maybe just clarify. So there was a stat you gave about CBRE about people being prepared to accept a job offer in I think, was it a Fitwell building? What, could you just repeat that stat for us again, and if you would, please?
Yeah, so this is an anecdote that my boss told me, so I should probably fact check it.
Yeah.
But so basically, CBRE is a global real estate management and leasing company, and they recruit at the top schools, and they have a well building. I'm pretty sure this was in their Los Angeles area, and they said that twice as many people accepted their offers to work in a well-certified building than is their average. And so, that's just an anecdote that illustrates the appeal of, really exemplary and excellent work environments for top, top employment recruits.
Yeah, it's very telling, isn't it? So, yeah, I mean, from my perspective, being an engineer and understanding how, I suppose, the somewhat discretionary aspects in some terms as to how you put a project together, really at the end of the day do come back to sort of some good metrics behind them and some good, business case and economics to it. So it's really good to see that the ULI has got some good building blocks there to get it started, because sometimes on these assignments, it's really about, I might have the right objective, but how the hell do I make a start? So some of the simple building blocks that I think are there are really good to get us out of the starting blocks. And the other compelling thing sort of jumps out to me is that, and again, you can apply this to a lot of other things, is that really the ethos, the philosophy of, a development needs to be in place right from the outset, and that to be embraced by the whole team. And be lived through the journey of the development of the development of the development, I suppose, and that you can't come in at the end and tack it on and hope that you can, go through and tick and flick and, score 85% and then market the hell out of that. It's really got to be, taken on board by everybody on the way through. So have you got any?
I mean, and that shows up in, all the way from like, are there those active stairs, or those, I think it can be helpful to think about, sort of walk the sort of journey into a project. So if you think about that outdoor environment, the lobby interface, how welcoming and interactive it feels with the street, and then you come inside, what greets you when you come into that lobby or that main floor? Are there amenities? Are there little stores? Is there an active stair? And then it flows all the way through into the different choices that you make about furnishings and paint and all the sort of operational decisions. The toolkit has other details about things like pest management that's healthy and green, and lots of sort of operational strategies that show up in well and fit well as well, to really make sure that like every decision is really focused and promoting that human health and well-being optimization. Yeah,
very much so. Yeah, so I think, Rachel, we might be starting to draw to a close. I don't see any more questions coming through there. Guys and girls, there might be a couple of minutes or seconds left to put a question through if you wish to. But I suppose just to close off, if people want to reach out to Rachel directly, I think she's happy to share her email address, which we will later. And we'll share also some links to the presentation, together with a recording of the webinar, and we'll share that in the next day or so as we get that finished. So it doesn't look like we've got any more questions. So just say I hope that everybody attending the webinar has seen or received real value from it. I'm sure as I have, you will. It's been very enlightening for me. And just generally, we're hoping to run more webinars in the future on interesting topics like this, to keep everybody up to date with where we're going. So yeah, please follow DMA Engineers. And I'd just like to a special thank you to Rachel. It's great to be able to connect with somebody on the other side of the world, to do it in such a modern format, but so personable as well. And really appreciate putting yourself out there to allow us to run that webinar. So thank you from here in Oz.
It's been great to interface with you guys. Please do check out our work and keep in touch. I'm happy to respond to any specific inquiries or put you in contact with ULI folks in Australia. So thanks and keep up the good work.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks all.